Hey, what's up, guys? My name is TJ. Welcome back to the channel for those of you who have been here before. And if you haven't been here before, welcome. And thanks for stopping by. I hope you find a reason to stay a little longer. Last video, I talked about really just what autism is in general, what the DSM-5 says about it, and what the diagnostic criteria are. Today, I wanted to talk about a aspect of it that is a very major aspect, but unfortunately it's also a part of autism that not many people know about unless you or someone you know is diagnosed with autism and has gone through this. It's not really something that you would even think about. For some people it might be hard to believe, but it is a real thing. It is a real phenomenon that happens, and we are going to discuss masking today. If you don't know what masking is basically the act of suppressing certain behaviors or characteristics that you may have. Really anything about you that you might want to suppress, you may cover up or compensate for. And how this affects autism is, if you watched my last video, you may remember that children with autism, and adults too, but children especially, have more neurons than average in their brain. And in children, it's quite a bit above average. And so they are learning at rates that are above average to everyone else. So they're able to learn things that we don't really understand that we are even teaching them. So say if the child is flapping their hands, an adult may tell them to stop doing that. That would cause them to suppress that behavior because they learn very quickly, oh, that's something I can't do, so I shouldn't do, and I won't do it, so I can make that adult happy. And that could go for really every behavior. And the crazy thing about masking is that a lot of times this starts subconsciously and you don't really know it. So when you are a high functioning autistic child who is just suppressing these behaviors subconsciously and you're not really thinking about it, then there would be no reason to believe that you have autism. Because by the time you reach school age or reach the age where you are expected to have quite a bit of social skills, you do actually have the social skills because over time you've learned and you've taught yourself to mimic the people around you. You may mimic siblings or friends or cousins or classmates, really everyone you can get your eyes on, even TV characters. I know a lot of times for me, I will take on the accents of people, especially in TV shows. So if I ever am talking in an accent that I do not have, it's probably because I was watching a lot of a TV show and I just picked up on someone's accent. I don't know why I mask my accent. It's just Oklahoma. It's just a way to script in my mind how I want to talk, because that is how I have seen someone talk. So I know that that is acceptable. But it is all happening subconsciously, like I said. And you may say a lot of people do this. A lot of people may change how they talk or behave when they're around their family or their coworkers or their classmates, whoever it may be. But there is quite a large difference. With that example of just a code switch or acting more professionally around coworkers, that is actually not something that autistic people do at all. It's actually in the DSM-5's diagnostic criteria that autistic people don't do that. And so, yes, it is different. What masking is a completely subconscious, you are not aware of it, and it's not you. When you're code switching, it's just different versions of yourself. But when you're masking, it is completely suppressing the natural behaviors that you may show. And so for a lot of autistic people, this can be actually quite unhealthy and very harmful. Another thing about autism is that autistic people really struggle with emotional regulation and regulating our own emotions. And so whenever you get upset, you may be able to calm down pretty easily or pretty quickly, but in autistic people, we don't really have those same luxuries. And so what we do is we will regulate our emotions by seeking out extra sensory stimulation. And a lot of times that is stereotypically autistic behavior, like hand flapping, or mine a lot of times I'll just shake my hand like this. Or you might see people rocking, or head banging is a big one. And this is actually called stimming, which is short for self-stimulation. And it is just a urge of, wow, I need to do this so I feel better, and I feel better. Like whenever I feel upset, I really do feel just an urge to shake my hand. And whenever I shake my hand, I feel better. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's like whenever you think, wow, I'm really thirsty, and you go get a drink, and it just feels better. And these stims may not always be active motions like that. This could be sounds like music. I have a whole playlist of songs that just tickle my brain, and they just sound good, and it calms me down. Certain textures can calm me down, soft pillows, blankets, stuff like that. And that's just how you regulate your emotions as an autistic person, by listening to music and moving and just kind of getting the energy out, because your body can't process it, so you have to process it yourself. And so how this becomes very unhealthy for autistic people who don't know that they're masking is... And a lot of people may ask, like, what does masking feel like? Does it feel like anything? Do you know what it feels like? And really the best metaphor that I heard for it was asking someone, is blinking voluntary? When you blink, do you think about it, or do you just do it? And obviously the answer is you just do it. You don't have to think about blinking. But for an autistic person, you do. You are constantly thinking about every single social response, and you have to consciously do that because you don't naturally do those things. And so if you don't do those things in a conversation, then the other person might not want to have other conversations with you after this one. And so you just do those things, and you learn them over time, like making eye contact or making facial expressions. Like whenever I make eye contact, I have to be thinking and focusing on direct eye contact that entire time. And I'm also thinking about, how wide am I opening my eyes? How wide is my smile? Am I smiling at all? Am I having just a flat mouth? Am I raising my eyebrows? What am I doing with my voice? Am I just talking like in one tone? Or am I raising or reducing my tone? Am I getting louder? I really don't know a lot of the times. I just kind of talk, and whatever comes out, comes out. And sometimes it sounds normal, and sometimes I just kind of sound like I am saying one sentence but meaning to say something else because of how I said it. But it's okay, because we move on. And that is actually incredibly exhausting. And when you do that in every aspect of your life, it is very, very burdening. And it leads me to the next point of how masking can be so dangerous for autistic people. When you are masking for so long, say 20 years or 21 years or even 15 years for some, or 10 years, when you're masking for so long, you're building up all of those emotions that you weren't able to regulate. You're building up all of those feelings that you weren't able to process yourself manually in that moment, because you had masked those behaviors that would have allowed you to regulate that emotion. And so after a lot of years, for a lot of people, they have what a lot of autistic people may call a canon event on the internet. And that is whatever event it may be for them that leads to their diagnosis. It seems like everyone has some sort of event that has led to that. And this is what is called a meltdown. A meltdown is when an autistic person reaches their masking limit of what is demanded of them or required of them in a social environment. And it can be very detrimental, especially depending on how long they've been masking. So for someone who has been masking for 15 to 20 years and they've just never known that they were autistic, if they do reach a meltdown point and they do reach a point where they just can no longer handle the requirements and the expectations that are placed on them by society, they can have a full-blown meltdown where it seems like they are going crazy and it seems like they are losing their mind. But really, it's just a full outward expression of all of that emotion. Going back to how I said, since we can't regulate our emotions, we have to push that energy out and we have to exert that energy. And that's really what a meltdown is you are exerting all of the energy that is required to get that meltdown out and to get those emotions processed. And it's tiring and it's tough to go through. I reached mine in 2021 and I spent a week in the hospital. I'm okay now. I was okay then. But yeah, I just reached my limit and that's what happened. And now I know what happened. And so now I know how to avoid that. And I know how to not get myself there again. And I know that the best treatment for it is to just allow myself to regulate those emotions and allow myself to stim and get that sensory stimulation that I require. And so that's why I have those things like the poppets and different fidget toys so that I can just keep them around in case I need them for either grounding or just stimming. And another thing about stimming is it can be a lot of things that you do. Stimming could be literally any sensory activity that makes you feel better. And so whenever you're anxious and you bounce your leg, guess what? You're stimming. Whenever you're just in a really good mood and you feel like you just need to sing a song, guess what? You're stimming. And so everyone stims. It's just a matter of how much you need to stim and how much you are allowing yourself to do so. For autistic people and neurotypical people, you probably don't have to stim a whole bunch. It probably doesn't take a ton of time in your day. But for autistic people, it may take up a pretty decent amount of time in their day. Or maybe just a few moments at a time, but multiple times throughout the day. And so it's really important that we allow ourselves to have those moments and have those times to do that. And take the stigma out of it. It's not something that should be looked down upon or like cast away. It should just be someone bouncing their leg or wanting to pace around or move or do something to get some feelings out. And that's okay. That's emotional and that's natural to do that. So for all of you who have friends or family or know someone who has autism and maybe you know that they struggle with masking at times or they struggle with not being able to regulate those emotions and stim, I hope that maybe this could be a helpful video. Maybe it taught you something more about it. Maybe it taught you something about how harmful masking can be if it's done long term. I know a lot of times our brains do it to give us safety and maybe keep us more comfortable in some situations that might not be so comfy. But yeah, long term, we should be looking for ways to unmask. And I've found, honestly, the best way to unmask for me is to just learn more about it. I feel like the more comfortable I am with the topic and the more accepting I am of my own diagnosis, I feel more safe to kind of open up those behaviors to both myself and my wife. Because I don't live alone, I am married, and so I do have someone in my household who my brain might try to mask for, and so I have to try to allow myself to just know I am in a safe environment and I don't have to do that. If you guys thought this was helpful and maybe you learned something from it, I encourage you to share it on Facebook or maybe send it to a friend or family member who also might benefit from this. And subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to grow the channel. We're brand new. This is only the second video, so really any interactions with the channel I will appreciate. And that is really all I have for today. So keep stimming, chill out with the masking, and I think we will all be okay if we can all just be our one true selves. Peace out. Love y'all.